Let's jump right in, because today we're basically putting on our detective hats to investigate something that quietly shapes literally our entire lives. I'm talking about your money story. We're pulling some absolutely brilliant insights from Steve Green's book, Financial Health in the 30 Steps, from debt chaos to a balanced budget. And hey, don't worry, we are definitely not going to be staring at terrifying spreadsheets or doing complex math today. No way. Instead, we're going on a totally judgment-free detective investigation into the psychological gears turning behind our financial habits. So let's get into it.
Okay, be honest with me for a second. Do you ever feel this paralyzing fear when it's time to check your budget or even just log into your banking app? Like it's some horror movie you just can't bring yourself to watch. Well, if you're nodding your head yes right now, I want to tell you right off the bat, you're not broken. You are just human. So many of us carry around this really overwhelming sense of dread or shame about our finances. We dodge the numbers because, honestly, the numbers feel like this harsh judgment on who we are as people. But as we're going to see, that fear, it's really just a symptom of an invisible script running in the background of your mind.
Now, what's really interesting here is a point Steve Green makes. He says if money decisions were purely mathematical, financial stress would be rare. And I mean, think about it. The formulas for saving money or paying off debt, they aren't exactly state secrets. Yet we see highly intelligent people everywhere struggling with impulsive spending and chronic avoidance. Why is that? Well, behavioral economics actually proves our choices are driven way more by invisible, emotional money scripts than by any rational mathematical calculation. And these scripts, they're basically deeply ingrained assumptions that usually form way back in our childhood.
So let's look at how this actually plays out in real life. It's what we call the shame and avoidance loop. Step 1, you make a financial mistake and boom, you feel intense shame. Step 2, to escape that awful feeling, you just avoid looking at your balance or opening your mail. It's out of sight, out of mind, right? But then step 3 hits. Because you aren't monitoring things, your financial stress is actually growing behind the scenes, which leads right into step 4. That worsening situation causes your shame to spike even higher. It's literally a perfect self-reinforcing psychological loop. We use avoidance to cope, but that avoidance just creates a much bigger mess. To actually break that loop, you have to lean into that detective role and conduct an origin interview. I seriously encourage you to grab a piece of paper later today and just ask yourself a few questions. What's your earliest memory involving money? Was the vibe in your house growing up tense, or was it open, or maybe super secretive? What specific phrases did you hear all the time? Things like, money doesn't grow on trees, or rich people are greedy. By actively digging into these questions, you start uncovering the roots of your own limiting financial beliefs. You're basically finding your own hidden clues.
And once those beliefs lock in during childhood, this really powerful psychological mechanism keeps them stuck there. It's called confirmation bias. See, your brain loves shortcuts. It wants to save energy. So if your money script says, "I'm bad with money," your brain turns into this traumatic movie director. It edits out all your successes and zooms way in on your failures. Every single financial mistake feels like absolute, undeniable proof that you are terrible with money. Meanwhile, every good decision? Oh, that was just pure luck. This bias can literally sustain harmful financial schemas for years.
This brings us to something absolutely crucial: the difference between an emotional interpretation and a concrete fact. Your interpretation might be screaming at you, "Debt makes me feel so ashamed," but the actual objective fact is simply, "I have debt, which is uncomfortable." You really have to look at your beliefs like clues at a crime scene. Feelings are not data, guys. They are just signals. By separating your intense emotional interpretations from the boring mathematical facts, you can instantly dial down that financial panic. It's all about pulling that heavy moral judgment right out of the equation.
Which leads us nicely into this super powerful concept called cognitive diffusion. It's basically the psychological process of observing a thought to take away its power rather than just automatically reacting to it. So when you catch yourself and say, "I'm having the thought that I'm completely broke," instead of just declaring, "I am completely broke," you create this instant psychological distance. By choosing curiosity over self-judgment through diffusion, you can step back. And that fundamentally changes those automatic, impulsive reactions you might have towards spending.
Let's actually apply this to our daily habits. Notice how very specific emotional states consistently lead to unplanned purchases. Like feeling overwhelmed at work, suddenly you're ordering really expensive takeout as a reward. Or maybe you had an argument with your partner. Boom, you're mindlessly scrolling online stores just for distraction. Feeling sad or, hey, even celebrating? Bring on the retail therapy. The thing is, financial triggers are rarely about the numbers. They are almost always about managing difficult emotions. Recognizing these triggers is a huge step in building your emotional literacy.
Let's move to the next slide and see how this builds into a practical tool you can use literally right now. It's the ABC pattern, which comes from cognitive behavioral therapy, and it's a super concrete way to analyze those emotional triggers. A is the activating event, like say you finally looked at your credit card balance. B is the belief. Your brain immediately screams, "I'm never going to fix this." And C is the consequence. You feel this intense anxiety and avoid your account for another 2 weeks. By actually writing this out, you can spot the distortion right there at step B and replace it with a balanced, accurate belief before you start spiraling.
So what this all comes down to is how you talk to yourself about these events. Look at the stark contrast here between an identity-based script and a skill-based script. Saying I'm bad with money feels so permanent, right? Like it's impossible to change. But shifting that to I haven't learned a reliable money system yet completely changes the game. This right here is probably the most vital takeaway from our whole analysis today. You absolutely have to change those destructive financial scripts from being permanent identity flaws into learnable skills, because skills can be learned, practiced, and mastered. And as you start practicing this skill-based mindset, you'll naturally build true psychological resilience. The real secret? You have to treat your financial mistakes as useful data, not as proof of personal failure. Literally everyone has past missteps, but the people who recover the fastest from financial setbacks are the ones who look at their mistakes simply as information. It's just data you need to build a better system. Shame is definitely not a financial strategy. Gathering evidence, tweaking your approach, now that is a winning strategy for sure.
Well, we've definitely uncovered a lot of incredible clues in our investigation today. So I want to leave you with this final, really provocative thought from Steve Green. He says, "You are not bad with money, you are operating from a story that can be rewritten." What story will you write next? Remember, your money behavior is not your character. It is simply a pattern, and patterns can absolutely be redesigned. You've got the detective tools now to observe, learn, and adjust. So take a hard look at your hidden scripts today, step right out of that shame loop, and start writing an entirely new financial story.